Hey there, pioneers. Welcome to the Reflections Cast, designed to immerse you in teachings about goal setting, dream building, and all things dynamic living. Join us for inspiring conversations as we unwrap these topics and offer insights for seeking positive change in your life. Here's Season 3, Episode 7, Is Integrity Possible? All right, well, welcome to the final episode for Season 3. We are so excited to have you here. My name is Steve.
And I'm Melody.
And we are wrapping up this incredibly awesome talk on integrity. And I think it's just been a wild ride, a fun one, an educational one. And I hope you guys all enjoyed it with us. This final chapter is just kind of tying it up. Dad does a great job of bringing it all together and giving us these final points to kind of seal this message and give you something to hold on to and work on until we meet again for the next season. Well, and I want to talk all about the experience of learning from Dad this season, but we're going to save that for after we have this final talk with him. So before we get into all that, Melody, can you tell the audience maybe what we've got coming up in the next, couple of days?
Yeah, it's an exciting time, everyone. We are getting ready to head on a plane out to Colorado to be present with many of you at our Circle A Summit. So it is happening in just a few short days, and I really think this is going to be the best one we've ever had. We are going to be doing something brand new that we've never done at a summit before. So it's a surprise. If you aren't coming, then you might not find out what it is. But if you're coming, you are going to experience it, and it's going to be amazing. And so, yeah, we're super, super excited about the summit that is coming. And I wanted to share on the podcast because we have so many friends of Circle A and those of you who have learned from Skip for so many years. Although it is too late to join us this year at the summit, first of all, we will be sharing with you about next year's summit probably by August. So we will have a date and location for next year, and we will share that. But the other thing I wanted to mention on the podcast is that we have a scholarship program for the summits. So if you are not able to personally attend the summit, but you want to be a part of allowing that experience in the life of a young person, we have many kids who apply for scholarships each summer, and we have donors who help to fund those scholarships. So if that is something that you are interested in, you can go to circleacamp.com and click on donate, and there's a bunch of information for you there about being a part of the Legacy Circle, which is just a chance to help fund kids coming for this life-changing, transformational experience. So I wanted to invite you to check that out as you're thinking about ways to be a part of Circle A, because this is a huge way that you could be a blessing in the life of a teen, a rising pioneer. So we would love to have you partner with us.
Absolutely. I think that's a great thing to bring up on the podcast, because if you're listening to this and you like this content, if you like exploring these aspects of life and you know a young person, or you want to help a young person understand these concepts and ideas more fully, there is no place better than the Circle A Summit for a young person to explore these concepts and ideas. So absolutely check it out. We want to see you there. We want you to be a part of that awesome experience. And now, talking about awesome experiences, let's finish this talk with Dad about integrity. Is integrity even possible?
So we come to major point 5. You say, wait a minute, Skip, I haven't been getting your major points along the way. Well, that's probably because I didn't specifically call the major point. Roman numeral 1 was, what is integrity? Roman numeral number 2 was basic principles of integrity. Roman numeral number 3 was how to live with integrity. Roman numeral number 4 was integrity tips. Roman numeral number 5 is integrity possible? Is integrity possible? Every once in a while, I haven't done this for a while, and I should have done it. I didn't before I came for the session today. But in the near past, I have looked up statistics on lack of integrity in the workplace and what that lack of integrity cost in just plain dollars to the North American economies. And it's billions and billions and billions of dollars. Things such as quality control, a lack of integrity in quality control. A guy who works on the line who's supposed to do something and he just lets it slide. A company who's supposed to do that and lets it slide. And we have millions and millions of dollars of recall that come as a result of a lack of integrity. Covered up incidents. I mean, there's somebody being gone after on a continuing basis for trying to cover up something that went on in their industry, in their store, in their workplace. Lying about sick days. It's all a lack of integrity. Lying about product or service to customers. Putting undue pressure on others. Those 5 areas of lack of integrity in the workplace cost our economy billions of dollars. Some estimate as much as $50 billion a year. As they speak in terms of budgets, as they have been doing off and on for eternity, I think, but in our country, they would talk in terms of a $500 billion over a 10-year period of time that could be restored to the economy just with some integrity. And that's not everybody being integrous all the time. It's just restoring some of that. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. Everything that goes into a life of pleasing God has been miraculously given to us by getting to know personally and intimately the one who invited us to God. The best invitation we ever received. Everything that goes into a life of pleasing God has been miraculously given to us by getting to know personally and intimately the one who invited us to God, namely Jesus Christ. So humility becomes the foundation of integrity. Is it possible to live a life of integrity? The answer is yes, according to 2 Peter 1:3 that we just read, and according to Psalm 75:4 and 5, I said to the boastful, do not boast, and to the wicked, do not lift up your horn, do not lift up your horn on high, do not speak with insolent pride. Humility then becomes the foundation of integrity. When we work hard and exert time and effort to achieve a goal, what's wrong with taking the credit for it? People have asked me. What's wrong with tooting our own horn? That's what the godless thought in Asaph's day. You all remember Asaph, right? Are you a person of integrity or not? Do you remember Asaph? No. I see 1 or 2 yeses. Okay, good. I'm not going to tell the story of Asaph right now. But you could look it up. It's in the Bible, actually. They relied on their own strength and pointed to their great power when they achieved success. But they forgot that all of their abilities came from God. They neglected gratitude, their pride took over their hearts, and God hates pride. That's one of those things you write down in your little book of life. God hates pride. He says it again and again in His Word. The Lord has promised that those who boast in their own strength will be humbled. So when we ask the question, what's wrong with tooting our own horn? I guess what's wrong with it is God hates pride. It places credit and glory in the wrong place. The Lord has promised that those who boast will be humbled. He will break their horns, so to speak. So when we succeed, to whom should we give the credit? There's nothing wrong with acknowledging our own gifts and talents, as we talked about a little bit earlier today. But when we forget that they originate with God, that our gifts and talents and abilities come from God Himself, we will begin to slide down the slippery slope of pride to the valley of destruction. Let's use the success God has given us to proclaim His strength and not our own strength. Let's be people of integrity to celebrate God's gifts as they are lived out in life and find good response. For our integrity to be refined as silver, we must submit ourselves either to the scalpel of adversity or the probing light of prosperity. And it depends on our circumstances as to what's needed. Probably both are going to be needed in your life, in my life, from time to time. I believe I have gone through both already in my life. No amount of adversity should alter personal integrity. And no amount of prosperity should weaken moral integrity. Each day we must examine ourselves, as the Apostle Paul commands us in in 1 Corinthians 11:28. And I thought I had that up. I don't, so give me a moment. 1 Corinthians 11:28. It says, or says, depending. That is why you should examine yourself before eating the bread and drinking the cup. For if you eat the bread or drink the cup without honoring the body of Christ, you are eating and drinking God's judgment upon yourself. That is why many of you are weak and sick, and some have even died. But if we would examine ourselves, we would not be judged by God in this way. So examine yourself. Here are 4 questions to conclude with. These are not questions that I will answer for you. They are not questions that I will ask you to answer out loud here in this time together. They are questions that I would encourage you to think about and get some personal resolution to these questions. Number 1, has your integrity been put to the test lately? Has your integrity been put to the test lately? Number 2, has adversity tempted you to compromise in order to relieve the pain? Has adversity tempted you to compromise in order to relieve the pain? Number 3, has prosperity tempted you to compromise in order to retain the comfort of your possession or position? Has prosperity tempted you to compromise in order to retain the comfort of your possessions or position. Number 4, think about your most recent trial and evaluate the quality of your integrity as a result of that trial. Think about your most recent trial and evaluate the quality of your integrity as a result of that trial. Integrity is the opposite of hypocrisy. A person with integrity follows through on commitments and doesn't back down when something better comes up. We are called by God in His Word to be people of integrity. It is a principle He established, and we do well to live by it.
All right. And that concludes our integrity teaching from Skip. I always love listening to these recordings. I just feel like I'm back in the room hearing it live for the first time. And it's really special and precious. And I'm glad that we get to do this together. And I'm glad that we get to share this with all of you guys. So I turned on the recording earlier today and my husband, Chris, and I were listening and we started laughing immediately because Dad and his Roman numeral points, he would always, at the end of his talks, go back and explain the outline one more time. And it was so fun to hear him do that again today. But this talk brings us to major point 5, which is the question, is integrity possible? And I love that he gives us that direct question and then he answers it with a clear and hopeful yes. And so he talks about the cost of the lack of integrity, just reminds us of that cost. And he talks about the financial cost in our country, which is an interesting point to bring up. Mm-hmm. Then he talks about the scripture in 2 Peter, where essentially everything that goes into a life of pleasing God has been given to us through Jesus. And so that is a beautiful and I think essential point of the holistic teaching that he's trying to give. And then he talks about pride and humility. And I found this very interesting that he went into this as a part of the integrity teaching. And it's one of those places where you're like, wait, there's an entire other seminar here and I want to hear it. And I just got like the 3-minute version and it wasn't enough, but it's important. It's really, really important. So he's talking about even the ancients in Psalm 75 relied on their own strength and forgot that their abilities come from God. And just talking about the essential nature of humility when it comes to living a life of integrity. Then he talks about the proper response to success, another entire seminar or more that we get about 2 minutes of, but he brings pride and humility into that as well. Just essentially reminding us to stay humble. And when we do that, we can live as people of integrity. And then he talks about the way that our integrity is refined and whether we are refined by the scalpel of adversity or the probing light of prosperity. Both are needed and both happen from time to time in every life. And neither of those things should alter our integrity. So he calls us to a very high standard, which I love. I love that my dad's teaching always calls us to a very high standard. And so then he calls us to self-examination, just to examine ourselves every day, to search for those places of pride and search for those places where we may have a lack of integrity. And then he gives us those 4 personal questions, and I won't repeat them, but we'd probably all do well to go back and write those questions down as we kind of finish this conversation about integrity, because, man, it certainly is important to be honest in our inner self-examination. So, yeah, that is the teaching from Skip on integrity. What did you think about it, Stephen?
Yeah, I loved it. It is a bunch of really hard points, but they are true. And if you are someone who studies the Bible and wants to understand God's want for us to be an integrous person, we have to explore these concepts and ideas. And so I think he did a great job of giving us some things to really think about, even as we go out into the summer months and maybe go on hiatus just for a little bit with the podcast. Something to really think about and explore in further depth just for ourselves. And so I love this season. I thought it was a great teaching, and it's definitely one that I probably am going to listen back to again just to get a little bit more out of as time goes on. But yeah, it was a great talk. I'm trying to remember what it was at the top that I wanted to ask you about, but anyway, it'll come to me, I'm sure, in the questions. But there are some questions that even now I still think people might be struggling with, and that I want to wrestle around in before we say our goodbyes. So you feel good about getting into some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, the first one, I just think that there's just room in this talk to just go over some of the nitty gritty of some of the points that he brought up, even throughout the whole discussion of integrity. But one of the things that he talks a lot about in this is pride and the dangers of that. And so I was hoping that we could discuss kind of the difference between this haughty pridefulness and, grateful confidence from God a little bit more. One other thing that goes along with that is when we fail, how are we to feel about that? Because he says that we're not supposed to feel a sense of pride when we accomplish something for ourselves. Like, we should give it to God and say, God has given me these talents and abilities, and I'm thankful to him for it. But when we fail, are we supposed to also have a personal sense of failure? Are we to feel no sense of personal pride and accomplishment, but also feel a personal sense of failure when things don't go towards our success? So I guess the question is, when should we take things personally?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. And again, like I was saying, we get the 3-minute version from Dad instead of the long extended version on this conversation. And I do think it does require a longer extended conversation. I think, like, if I'm just looking at my dad's example, for one, don't think I ever saw him exhibit any sort of haughty pride ever in his life. Even though he did a lot of extraordinary things that, most people would feel a sense of pride. But he certainly did feel a sense of accomplishment about things. And not even just, his business pursuits or his founding a summer camp that went on for decades. But I mean, he would feel a sense of personal accomplishment when he finished weeding a flower bed, and he did that whole thing with his bare hands. I mean, he loved, all sorts of practical projects like that. And I think that those were some of the times where he displayed his personal sense of accomplishment the most. So I don't think that having a haughty sense of pride is the same thing as having a sense of personal accomplishment. But I do think what he's saying here is, when we do achieve things, there is a part of our psyche and our heart and our soul that, when we choose to live in humility and be grateful to God for the gifts that he gave us that allowed us to do that thing, whatever it was, it's a different sort of sense of accomplishment. And it's not just a pride in myself as a self-made human. It's a delight in my partnership with my creator and my unique space and place in this world. So it's not either be negative or positive about it. It's be a different sort of positive about your accomplishments. In the same way, I think our failures, Dad was tough on himself, no doubt. He was tough on himself. But I don't think that he wallowed in failure when he made a mistake. I think it's the same posture of humility that embraces the reality of our finitude as human beings, that embraces the reality that we are not perfect and we will never be perfect on this side of heaven. And so just like we can't own every accomplishment as something that we were able to achieve outside of God, we can't own every failure as we should expect ourselves to live lives of perfection. So there's a humility in our failures as well to say, I am a finite human. I am not perfect. So I've made a mistake here, but I can learn from it and I can grow and I don't need to wallow in failure about it. So I think that it would be my short answer as to how he would answer that question. But it's a good question for sure.
Okay. I like that. I like the idea of our happiness is to be derived from the outcome of the effort, but not the personal ownership of those results, right? Like it matters where your happiness is coming from, or the pride is coming, not pride.
Sense of accomplishment.
where the sense of accomplishment is coming from. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know I'd say it's the outcome. I think it's the process. I don't think our sense of happiness even, and maybe that's the difference is that if our sense of accomplishment is tied to the outcome, maybe there's more pride as opposed to just being delighted to be on the journey and expressing the best versions of ourselves, the people that God created us to be. And I think that's where the real sense of happiness can be found.
Okay. All right. I like that answer. And leads me to my next question. At the end of this talk, Dad asked these 4 really heavy self-examination questions about whether our integrity has been tested and whether we've compromised. Could constantly something that I just thought as I'm hearing him list these out, could constantly asking ourselves these sorts of questions just lead us to this feeling of anxiety or self-condemnation or a feeling of perfectionism, like we're always trying to do the right thing, and so that the next time we ask ourselves these questions, we can be more confident that we've not done the thing that we were upset that we did last time, or, whatever the result of asking those questions could be, rather than us just feeling the joy and the happiness that, he talks so much about in the idea of dynamic living.
Right. It's a good question too. I think that some of us could be prone to being a little too hard on ourselves, or just kind of getting stuck in a cycle of not self-examination or evaluation, but self-critique. And that wouldn't be healthy. And that's not what he's advocating. But these questions, I don't know that anyone, even him, is going to ask these specific questions every day, because these are heavy and these are specific. And that would be a lot to do every day as a part of a self-examination routine. But I think these are great questions, and we are wise to ask them of ourselves periodically. I think what he's talking about when he says examine ourselves every day, I can just share my own personal practice about this, and I've probably shared it on previous seasons of this podcast, but I pray the examine prayer every day, and it's just a part of my life rhythm. And, the first part of that prayer is awareness of the presence of God. The second part of that prayer is gratitude. And then the third and fourth parts of the prayer are repentance and noticing. And it's not that I'm coming in this prayer time to a point of like critiquing myself. It's more that I'm just inviting the Spirit of God to like look with me inside and illuminate any places that I may not be being my best self, and not to, feel shame about that. Maybe sometimes there's guilt if I've, really kind of not been the best version of myself, but more, it's just an opportunity to see a place where I can turn and take a different path, or see a place where like I've got a habit here that I don't love, and I saw it yesterday, and well, Lord, I saw it again today. So I'm asking for your help to change it. And sometimes that's what my prayers are when I start to see a pattern. And the thing is that it's not a heavy sort of self-critique. It's more of a, I see this and I'm giving it to you, God, and I'm asking for your help. And it's like it's a lightening. It's a relieving sort of a prayer where you notice your failures or your shortcomings and you ask God for help. And the thing is that he gives it to you. And, you know, I can look back over my life of the last 5 or so years I've been doing this and see tremendous growth, honestly, not to toot my own horn, but like I've seen places where I have changed for good because of this sort of a practice. So I think that's more what he's talking about, is just that daily opening ourselves to that awareness. And then having questions like the ones he shared to periodically go through and like ask ourselves the hard questions and the specific questions, to just illuminate our inner selves a little bit more. But I have found that the more I know myself, the lighter I feel, not the heavier.
Okay, so it's awareness, gratitude, repentance, and what?
Noticing. So the noticing is more just, it doesn't have to be about failures. It's just noticing whatever the Spirit might be saying to you on that particular day. And then the last one in my exam and prayer, and I may have morphed mine a little bit from the traditional exam and prayer. So if you are a contemplative and you're like, oh, you're forgetting a step, I'm so sorry. But my final step is, what's the word? Intention. So after I pray all of that and have that awareness, then I make an intention for the day.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, speaking of asking God for help on this subject, that does lead to my next question, which is when Dad asks the big question at the beginning of this, is integrity possible? He answers yes, because God has given us what we need. We have this proper foundation. But for kids who maybe grew up in a difficult home, didn't have great examples, maybe they are stuck in a pattern of behavior that is not so great. Is this blanket answer like, yeah, it's possible, God's there for you? Is it overly simplistic? Like, how can someone realistically, if they're coming from a negative space, or not necessarily negative space, but a place where there is no integrity that's example to them or that they are aware of in their life, how can they change their life to be one of integrity if all they've ever known is the opposite? You know, I think of kids who watch influencers, and, you know, the influencers proudly talk about all the things that they have and the money they spend and the things that they've been able to do and accomplish. And the pride is just kind of out the window, or off the charts for, you know, the common examples for kids nowadays. But for someone who's, you know, starting in a difficult place, can you guide them on some sort of like roadmap of like, okay, this is what it looks like on this journey towards integrity?
Yeah, that is a good and complex question. I feel like
it's kind of maybe a long,
I feel
question.
like I need more time to probably give the best answer to this, like, because I think there's a lot of layers in what you're asking. And you're absolutely right. And you're right to ask it, because I don't think any of us are unscarred from being hurt by someone who we believed had integrity and then proved themselves otherwise. Maybe it's not in our homes, but it's certainly in our country. It's in our churches. It's in our schools. It's everywhere, where we trust someone and they violate that trust and they show themselves to be someone other than what we believed. And it's deeply painful and it's deeply formative. And And maybe it's formative to the point where we don't believe that integrity is possible, or we don't value it because we just feel like, well, I guess that's the way that the world works, and we don't actually have to have integrity because nobody does anyway. So I think there's a lot of disillusionment that's in our current cultural moment, because not only do people let us down, but our institutions have let us down in pretty much every category. So it's an important question. But I think what you're asking is, how do we still believe that it's possible despite much evidence to the contrary? And I think like the starting point with that is a personal relationship with Jesus. As far as the type of integrity that Dad's talking about. Now, again, he told us in the beginning, you can have integrity and be a terrible person, because all it really means is that you're the same outside as you are on the inside. So you can be evil inside and outside, and then you have integrity, but that's not very valuable. I think the valuable sort of integrity comes from a life that is aligned with the way of Jesus. And I don't think that it's necessarily the starting place. I think that it's something that grows out of following that life path. And when people in our lives aren't following that life path, we're not going to live that way. So I don't remember exactly how you said it, but like a roadmap towards integrity.
Yeah.
I feel like I need like time to like put together that talk because it's like an important talk.
Right.
I think, I don't know about a roadmap, but I do think that Dad is right in saying that humility is probably the starting place. It probably is. And a value of virtue and honesty and truth, which, when we talk about truth, we get into some transcendentals, which I think that's also a starting place. If we haven't made it all the way to Jesus, and we haven't figured out everything that we prioritize in the world, if we start with the transcendentals, which is the good, the true, the beautiful, which are things that exist outside of human definition, and we value truth, then I think we can walk a path towards integrity, because that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I love that, the points throughout this talk are as applicable today as they were when he gave the talk, and probably will continue to be. As long as the Bible's been around, it's still applicable. So I would imagine it will be long into the future as well. No matter what the institutions are showcasing at the present time, it sounds like, based on what he said about the economy and how we could improve it if people were just a little bit more integrous in their work. But I think that we innately have this sense of as you say, the true and the beautiful, and a draw towards those things. And I think that whether you're a young kid or a seasoned veteran of dealing with difficulties of integrity, I think that we can all understand the need to pursue a life where you are the person you say you are, and are helpful to those by being that person, not by misleading them or taking them down a path of deception. So I hope that even kids can listen to this season and get something out of it, and that even if they don't have a great example of it, like we had with Dad, that they can still be drawn to that good thing, just innately, and through a pursuit of a relationship with Christ. So, well, with that, are there any other thoughts that you had on this season as a whole, and the talk that Dad gave, or any thoughts on the future?
This was a good one. I feel like, we would be wise to listen, annually, quarterly, multiple times, because I think with integrity, most people listening to this podcast are probably not living lies. We're probably fairly honest people. But I think, like I said, Dad always calls us to a high standard. And I think it's good to challenge ourselves and to look inside ourselves and to ask the hard questions, because, a lack of integrity can start small and get big before we're fully even aware of it. So I think this is a good one for everybody. It's certainly a good one for our cultural moment. And I think that, I'm just really grateful that we have these teachings that we can continue to come back to and help us just to flourish into becoming the people God created us to be. So it's been an honor to be on another season of the Reflections Cast, for sure.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And, I think that I guess that point that I was trying to make was made clear in what you were saying, which is that, with things that kids have to battle, like social media nowadays, it's easy to not feel like you're lying.
Yep.
But also to not be really integrous with what you're saying when you're editing and catering this message through your posts or whatever, or when you're watching someone who's, trying to craft an idea with your posts. So it's definitely something, it takes constant self-examination, and I'm glad that we've got this talk to go back to. Also, for those that are in the Pioneer Circle, just like the previous talk, I'll edit this down and make it available for pioneers so that it can be even easier for them to reflect back on this and take notes and enjoy. And I'm looking forward to seeing y'all at the summit. So guys, if you didn't make it this year, sign up as soon as the sign up is available for next year, because it's always a great time and it's always a great experience to grow and change and develop into the person that you are becoming. And with that, I think it's time to say, well, thank you. Thank you for joining us on this journey with the Reflections Cast. And remember that your support means everything to us. So if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to hit that like button, write us a review, join us on that Pioneer Circle, and please share this episode with friends, family, or anyone you think might benefit from our discussions that we've had on this season. We believe in you, and we are committed to helping you thrive on your journey of discovering all you were created to be. And until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and pass it on.